going down to CC. With that, I guess I'll go into resolutions. Be it resolved to accept the minutes for meetings held on June 22nd, June 28th, and July 13th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And there's a couple of markups, Jack.
Okay.
Be it resolved to accept the town clerk's report.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Be it resolved to authorize payment of ordered vouchers in the amount of $145,186.36.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be resolved to to authorize transfers per transfer sheet.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be resolved to accept the resignation of Robert Young from the Housing Committee effective June 29, 2021. Be it further resolved to thank Bob very much for his service.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved to hire Robert Benjamin as contingent permanent full-time police officer for the town of Woodstock at a rate of $25.72 per hour effective July 15th, 2021. For the purpose of discussion.
Second.
So if you remember, there was a little back and forth. We did hire this is the same fella, and we did hire him full-time. We had to make it full-time 90-day temp because the list was not complete. The list came out as complete, so now we have, go ahead. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So this is a resolution to adopt our first local law for the year, our fill law.
Can we, 4 pages long?
This is the fill law.
5 pages.
No, it's not that long. Here, it's supposed to read it here.
You guys have the law there?
It's not that long.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Two resolutions.
Whereas the Woodstock Town Board proposes adoption of the local law, fill and grading law, creating the enforcement and permit process for fill and grading projects. And whereas pursuant to New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, this town board declares itself lead agency and further declares no coordinated review is required. And whereas on February 3rd, 2021, the Ulster County Planning Board reviewed the draft law and made several advisory recommendations which the town board implemented. Whereas the Woodstock Town Board held a public hearing on July 13th, 2021, actually, and scratch that second part, to receive public comments. And whereas adopting a fill and grading law will enhance the quality of life for the residents of the town of Woodstock and have no adverse environmental impact. And whereas the supervisor completed reports 1 and 2 of New York State Environmental Quality Review. Therefore, be it resolved that the supervisor is authorized to complete and file with the town clerk a negative declaration of environmental impact. Be it further resolved to close the public hearing. Be it further resolved to adopt local law number 1 for the year 2021.
Second.
Any questions, comments?
Can we close the public hearing?
Yep, that was the second. Yeah, sorry.
I think it's a good thing.
I do too. So, you know, as I said last week, this creates a permitting process, and more importantly, it gives the town, the building inspector, the building department, the ability to require certification for any fill coming into town, whether it's a project that gets permitted or whether it's a smaller project. So I think it'll just make what happened up in Shady much more difficult to see happen in the future. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Are you going to make a comment now, Mr. Hefner, on the resolution? You were talking about the 4-page resolution, the next one I have to read.
No, I was going to say,
I asked, and our attorney wants the whole thing read. A bond resolution dated July 20th, 2021, the town board, the town of Woodstock, Ulster County, New York, the town, authorizing the construction, reconstruction, renovation, improvements of the town offices at an estimated maximum cost of $2,990,000 authorizing the issuance of serial bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $1 million of the town pursuant to local finance law to finance such purpose, such amount to be offset by any federal, state, county, and/or local funds received, authorizing the appropriation of an amount not to exceed $1,990,000 from the town's capital project fund, delegating the power to issue bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the sale of such bonds to the town supervisor, determining that such bond resolution shall be subject to a mandatory referendum, and delegating the power and duties of the mandatory referendum to the town supervisor. Whereas the town board of the town of Woodstock, in the county of Ulster, New York, the town, desires to undertake the construction, reconstruction, and renovation improvements to the town offices. And whereas the board will, by motion, provide for mandatory referendum on this bond resolution in accordance with local finance law and town law, and such referendum will be held for a single purpose and will be scheduled to take place at the time of the November general election. Now therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town by a favorable vote of not less than 2/5 of all members as follows. Section 1, the town is hereby authorized to undertake the construction, reconstruction, renovation, installation, repairs, improvements of the town offices consisting primarily of the construction of approximately 2,500 square feet, one-story addition to the main building, and renovation of existing buildings to upgrade the wiring, heating, and air conditioning, insulation, windows, and doors, including any necessary site work and the acquisition and installation of furnishings, equipment, machinery, and apparatus, and ancillary costs required for such purpose, including preliminary costs and costs incidental hereto, and in connection with financing of collectively the purpose. The estimated maximum cost of the purpose is an amount not to exceed $2,990,000. Section 2, the town board plans to finance the estimated maximum cost of the purpose by the issuance of serial bonds in aggregate principal amount not to exceed $1 million of the town, hereby authorized to be issued therefore pursuant to local finance law, such amount to be offset by any federal, state, county, and/or local funds received. The remaining $1,990,000, the estimated maximum cost of the purpose to be paid in the town's capital project fund, the withdrawal and appropriation of such monies from the town's capital project funds hereby authorized by this resolution. Unless paid from other sources of charges, the cost of such purposes to be paid by the levy and collection of taxes on real property in the town, to pay the principal of said bonds and the interest thereon as the same will come due and payable. You want to read section 3?
No, you're doing well.
Getting a little winded. Section 3.
Like this, what's up?
There's 17 sections. Section 3 is hereby determines that the purpose is a class of objects or purposes described in section 11A, 12A, local finance law. The period of probable usefulness of the purpose is at least 15 years old. Section 4. The following additional monies are hereby determined and stated. A. Certain facilities described in section 1 above are Class A or B buildings as defined in section 11A of the law. B. Current funds are not required to be provided prior to the issuance of the bonds authorized by this resolution, and any notes issued in anticipation of the sale of such bonds. C. The proposed maturity of the obligations authorized by this resolution will be in excess of 5 years. Section 5. The faith and credit of the town are hereby irrevocably pledged for the payment of the principal of and interest of such bonds, and any bonds anticipation notes issued in anticipation of the sale of said bonds, as the same respectively become due and payable. An annual appropriation will be made in each year sufficient to pay the principal of and interest of such bonds and notes becoming due and payable in such year. Unless paid from other sources or charges, there will be annually be levied on all taxable real property of the town as tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest of such bonds or notes as the same become due and payable. Section 6. Subject to the provisions of this resolution, to local finance law pursuant to the provisions of section 30, relative to the authorization of the issuance of bond anticipation notes, the renewals of such notes, and of sections 21, sections 23, sections 50, sections 56 to 60, section 62, section 63, and section 164 of the local finance law, the powers and duties of the town board pertaining and incidental to the sale and issuance of the obligations hereby authorized, including but not limited to authorizing bond anticipation notes and describing the terms, forms, and contents and details as to the sale and issuance of the bonds herein, authorized and of any bond anticipation notes issued in anticipation of sale of such bonds. And the renewals of such notes are hereby delegated to the town supervisor, the chief fiscal officer of the town, without in any way limiting the scope of the foregoing delegation of powers of the town supervisor to the extent permitted by section 58F of the local finance law, is specifically authorized to accept bids submitted in an electronic format of any bonds or notes to the town.
There you go, all right.
What?
You okay?
I'm doing okay. You want to read section 7?
Not at all. Yeah, wait for the movie.
Hopefully it's a PG version. Section 7, temporary use of available funds of the town not immediately required for the purpose or purposes for which the same were borrowed, raised, or otherwise created is hereby authorized pursuant to sections 165.10 of the local finance law for the purpose or purposes prescribed in section 1 of this resolution. The town then reasonably expects to reimburse any such expenditures to the extent made after the date herein and within 60 days prior to the date hereof, with the proceeds of the bond authorized by section 2 of this resolution, or with any proceeds of any bond anticipation notes issued in anticipation of the sale of such bonds. This resolution shall constitute the declaration of the town's official intent to reimburse the expenditures authorized by section 1 hereof with such bond or note proceeds as required by the United States Treasury regulations of section 1.150-2. Section 8, the town supervisor is further authorized to take such actions as execute such documents as may be necessary to ensure the continued status of the interest of the bonds authorized by this resolution, and any notes issued in anticipation thereof as executable from gross income, federal income tax purposes pursuant to section 103 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended. The code, and may designate the bond authorized by this resolution, and any notes issued in anticipation thereof as qualified tax-exempt bonds, in accordance with section 265B3 of the code.
You want a break?
You want to do section? Yeah, just do section 9. Go ahead.
Okay. Section 9, the town supervisor is further authorized to enter into a continuing disclosure agreement with the initial purchaser of the bonds or notes authorized by this resolution, containing provisions which are satisfactory to such purchaser in compliance with the provisions of Rule 15C2-12, promulgated by the Securities and Exchange Commission pursuant to the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. You want to keep going?
All right, do number 2.
Section 10. The town has complied with applicable federal, state, and local laws and regulations regarding environmental matters, including compliance with the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. What is that, SEQRA? Secret, okay. Comprising Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law, and in connection therewith, duly issued a negative declaration and/or other applicable documentation, and therefore no further action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act is necessary.
Laura, you want to do 11 and 12?
Sure. Section 11. In the absence or unavailability of the town supervisor, the deputy town supervisor is hereby specifically authorized to exercise the powers delegated to the town supervisor in this resolution. Section 12. The validity of such serial bonds or any bond anticipation notes issued in anticipation of the sale of such serial bonds may be contested only if A, 1, such obligations are authorized for an object or purpose for which the town is not authorized to expend money, or 2, the provisions of the law which should be complied with at the date of publication of this resolution are not substantially complied with, an action, suit, or proceeding contesting such validity is commenced within 20 days after the date of such publication, or B, such obligations are authorized in violation of the provisions of the Constitution of New York.
Reggie, you want to read 13?
No, I'm happy to listen.
Okay. Section 13, the bond resolution is subject to a mandatory referendum. The proposition for the approval or disapproval of this bond resolution shall be submitted as a proposition to the qualified voters of the town at a general election to be held on November 2nd, 2021. The resolution shall take effect upon approval by such qualified voters at such election. Section 14, subject to the provisions of this resolution and the town law pursuant to the provisions of Section 82 of the town law, the powers and duties of the town board pertaining to or incidental to the mandatory referendum herein authorized, including but not limited to, setting forth in full the proposition to be voted on, are hereby delegated to the town supervisor, the chief fiscal officer of the town. Section 15, this bond resolution shall take effect upon approval of such proposition in accordance with the provisions of the local finance law by such qualified voters at such general election. Section 16. In addition to the foregoing, the town board hereby authorizes and directs the town clerk to do the following. A, this is your part, Jackie. To maintain and distribute copies of this resolution ready for public review and inspection at the office of the town clerk and any and all other locations deemed necessary by the town clerk and town supervisor to comply with New York State law regarding the referendum. And B, to take all necessary steps with assistance of the town attorney and the town's bond counsel to ensure that such proposition is properly placed before the duly qualified voters of the town at a general election to be held on November 2nd, 2021. Section 17. If the proposition is approved, the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish this resolution or a summary thereof, together with a notice in substantially the form provided in Section 81 of the local finance law to the local newspaper or newspapers of the town.
Second. You're done.
Okay,
Second.
I guess that is. I thought there was a little bit more. Sorry. I was having so much fun.
So, you can read more if you want.
Yeah, you're in next month.
It's a mini-series.
Any questions, comments from the board?
I'm looking forward to it. I think all of our town employees deserve a better, newer space, so I hope that the resolution passes in November.
I'm happy to put it in front of the public to let them weigh in on the project. All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Opposed?
For
4 to 1.
abstention.
Yeah, well, we need much discussion, okay.
No. I pulled up the vote.
Well, I told you this afternoon, I'm gonna vote for it, I just needed a few more days to put all the numbers together in my head. We only got this on Saturday night, so plus the budget.
So,
Yeah.
that, I'm glad you brought that
I
up.
think, I don't know what the plans are to inform the public, what the rate increase might be, what the budget actually is. Even though this is for $1 million, the whole project is 2.9, which is, the other 1.9 ain't chicken feed, that's taxpayer money too. So, I was hoping for a couple more days, but you got the vote, so
Unfortunately, we do have to have this into the Board of Election by August 1st, and Laura is scheduled to go away. But I'm glad you pulled this back, Richard. So the cost of this, the overall cost of the project, we started out at around $2.1 million with the pandemic and where we've seen prices go up. The architects have come back. They've been looking and tracking their most recent projects, and their feeling is that we're up around 2.99, just under $3 million for the whole project. We do actually have $2 million in our capital reserve, so this will give us a little cushion of $3 million for the project. Some good news, well, not good news, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed. The cost of lumber has come down dramatically since the high of May. Now, and a lot of local contractors are going to say, no, that's not true. It is true. It hasn't come through to the public yet because lumber yards are still selling off what they bought at a peak. But what I would remind the public, this is going to a vote in November. If it passes, construction would be taking place sometime in early spring. So between now and then, there's a lot of room. Prices could go up, they could come way down. But this does commit us to a $3 million project. Go ahead.
Just a question on that.
Yeah.
The numbers we received on the budget is 200,000 for where each building. Were those numbers, how recent are those numbers in relationship to the shifting cost of the lumber?
That was done at the end of May or the beginning of June. So it was done at the peak. Again, we have no guarantees of where we're going, but this does lock us in to a $3 million price tag. I can tell you from personal experience in dealing with 3 other projects in town, there's such a lag between design, estimating, going out to bonds, then going out to bid, that it's all over the place. The 3 projects that we did all actually ultimately came in a little higher by the time we got around to bidding the projects. But so we had 3 options at that point. We could deny all the bids, which we didn't do. We could have revised this resolution, which we refused to do, because we felt we made a pact with the people. It was going to be $3 million. We were going to, whatever each project was. The third was that we valued engineered, and that's what I would push for next year when we, if we go out to bid, where we make tweaks in the design to bring it within cost. And that's a process. I think you were involved with the community
Well, the
center.
community center, and we were able to get a chunk of money. And that's the other thing, is there was a gap with the community center, and we were lucky enough, Kevin Cahill, as I recall, stepped in and helped us close that gap. So you try what you can to fill in the gap.
But keep in mind, when Kevin Cahill came in with some additional funding, that only reduced the amount of money that we borrowed. It did not increase the
Right.
price tag.
Right.
So the price tag is set at just under $3 million. You mentioned costs, Richard. So I did send you a repayment schedule for the bond, and you can see that it actually starts out, the first couple of years we paid back around $75,000, $78,000. In years 2, 3, 4, somewhere around there, it jumps up to $90,000. So at the high end, the $90,000 payment, the cost to the taxpayer for a median price house, which is $303,000 at the moment, the cost to a taxpayer with a house like that would be $20.22 for the bonds. And of course, it would go down from there. Over the 15-year life of the bond, the average cost would be under $18 per year for someone with a median priced house of $303,000. I think you had another question in there.
Yeah, the plans for informing the public, future meetings on this?
I'm all ears. We can have a public a meeting with the plans again here. I'm open to however you guys want to deal with it. Certainly, I posted.
Other than the newspaper, I mean, people are going to be allowed to, how are you going to get the word? Whatever you just said about the percentage interest.
I'll post a lot of that on Facebook.
How are we gonna, I didn't hear Richard's question.
How are we gonna get word out to the public?
Okay.
Oh, I think they know.
Yeah,
Well, they don't,
I don't think
no,
they're
they
lacking.
don't know what the rate increase is yet.
right.
Yeah, we just got that Sunday, so.
Right, right, but what I'm saying
So
is,
what they're voting on is a rate increase.
right, right,
So,
and that's easily put out there, but what I'm saying is, I mean, you see the crowd tonight, they all know that this bond resolution was coming out.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, there's information the public needs,
Right.
to vote, intelligently.
And I understand that.
I can
I
assure
think
you
they
that,
should see the budget, I think.
I can assure you that I will work as hard to pass this bond resolution as the last three. So I'm gonna be out there campaigning for it heavily.
There's also, over time, we've discussed a number of changes, various different meetings. But the budget we get is like, I'd vote today for the money, fix this building up right away. But some of the changes we made, or suggested we made, I don't know that they're in there, they're not in there, are they included in the price, or not included in the price, and those are some of the other things I wanted to put together.
I'm happy to have the Walkers come back here and give the board a presentation.
Well, I'm just saying, the budget, you say $200,000 for this building, for this building, whatever it is.
That's based on the,
What's in, obviously not itemized, so what's in that $200,000 for the supervisor's cottage? People should know that too. I'm just trying to get it out there.
Well, we should spend some time thinking about what the communications campaign should be. We should spend some time thinking about what should be shared, and we should spend some time thinking about how to get the word out. So we have social media, we have the Facebook page, we have the town website, we have the newspapers. So we should give some thought to what the message is and how to.
and I will say that I've posted a number of times on Facebook, I put it out there. I'm happy to meet with the public during the day. We have the model right over there, we have a set of plans here. I'm happy to review it. Only two people have.
No,
I'll get to, we don't typically take questions when there's a resolution on the table.
I'm thinking of a more formal way. Facebook's fine, but it's not a way, it's not a platform to have public, discussion.
I'm fine with anything. We can
I
have,
think the whole board should be involved.
yeah, we can have a special meeting dedicated to this. One of the other things that, just an aside, and maybe this goes along with it, but one of the other things, so I'm going to get a little political here. I'm running for supervisor this year, and yeah, were you too? Were you thinking of running?
No,
And at this point, I don't have anybody running against me, but I don't want to just sit back and not do anything. I want to try and campaign. So I am in the process of reaching out to the 4 firehouses and doing, I don't want to call them campaign events, but just meet your elected officials. And I'll open it up to either candidates and elected officials. That's one place we could take it around to the outlying areas. Don't you?
Don't talk about campaigning.
I mean, we could make the rounds with the model and have discussions. So I'm open to any ideas on how to make the public aware.
And that's a good idea. I know back in the comp plan days, we had firehouse meetings, and it was good. I think we had about 20 or 30 people out, but it was nice because we went then to each part of town, and I think that's a very good idea. I'd be happy to join you if you're doing that, or I think it's a great idea to get the word out. Like you say, take the model, answer questions. And also, I plan to be doing some door-to-door on behalf of candidates. I'm happy to, if we have a flyer on it, I'm happy to distribute that along with other things that.
Back in 2007, when we had the referendum for the town hall, I got Harry Baldwin, the police chief, and Lori Hamilton, the head of dispatch, to come and sit in on Sam Mercer's show with me. And we had the plan up there, and we went over it, and we talked about the building and the shortcomings and why it was necessary. So we could do television again. 23 isn't quite as popular as it used to be, but that's an option as well.
I think a flyer would be very handy. A flyer would be one place to start, whatever information that people think ought to be on it. get a flyer together, people can pass it out, and we post it Facebook, the town website, and there's other ways to get it out, but I like your firehouse meeting idea as well.
Any other comments, Reggie? Lauren? Richard?
Are we voting, or are we pulling?
Well, I already had a vote, but
I-
I don't know
I
what
am-
you guys are doing, we call
I
it
didn't-
back.
I am gonna vote, I am gonna call the question again, and then I'll get to questions.
Let me
No.
say, I believe voters should have the right to decide this.
Absolutely.
Thank you, it's democracy.
Yeah.
It's a new concept. Yeah, my time on this board is limited. So I would vote for voters to decide. That's as far as I'm going to go at this point.
Maybe we could save a lot of money on the excavation if we could get Ed Sanders to levitate the buildings.
Has he done that before?
It's been done.
They levitated the Pentagon, they can do that.
Ed did it?
There should be nothing.
Ed did it though?
I wasn't there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
1967.
4-1-0, we still with the same vote?
Yeah.
Yes.
Jeff,
Thank you.
please.
Jeff, and
Just a
then,
suggestion for Richard, what we did for the library, which obviously failed, is you put a postcard for each person saying what your tax would be increased by. Which I think was informative for the voters to know how much your tax would increase. And such a small increase, that just saying $20 a year, is going to make it clear that it's not that much money.
Oh, that's okay,
no, go ahead.
I'll pass.
Okay.
And it's going to be ADA compliant.
Yes, it will be.
Because I think that's a really important point, to
That's,
drive home to people so that they know,
that's the,
because
that's
what
Because this
happens
place
now.
is so not ADA.
Exactly, so I think that's a really
That's
important
basically
point to
primary
make.
purpose.
that's,
Right, because people need access.
you know, listen, the employees, that there's some issues with loose plaster and whatnot. We still work in a beautiful setting. And this would be easy enough to fix up, but it's not gonna solve the ADA compliance. Bringing everything on one floor is gonna achieve that. And this is totally compliant.
And that's what will save this building. Right now, we're killing this building.
Yeah, I agree.
This building's got another good 20 minutes in it.
Meeting adjourned.
Lauren, Bill knocked that out.
No, Bill
I
didn't.
don't know, he took the stuff down there.
No, we didn't.
He'll do anything to sell this place.
I tell you what, if that crack gets any bigger, that's the next thing coming down. But that's over
Yeah, like I
how.
said, in terms of this building, it's gotta be, we gotta take care of this building.
Yeah.
That's my main concern. And from a historic perspective.
And you know, just to be clear, the building is not in danger of just totally collapsing.
Up,
Now,
up. Should we take a walk upstairs, everybody?
but what is happening is, you know, the timbers, they're old timbers, and they're being stretched and stretched and stretched, and we have to alleviate the weight of those old bones.
Let's just say it's squishy. Squishy upstairs.
Are we allowed to say squishy?
Yeah, that's a word for tonight.
Okay.
There's an inch and a half of drop from the outside walls in here to the center.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's why I sit against an outside wall.
Oh, sure,
Well, you're on that cycle too.
Yeah, seriously.
although there's no cracks on the, oh, Bill's got it.
All right. Where was I?
Public be heard.
No.
Well, no, rather be it resolved, after section 17, be it resolved.
Yes.
Where were we?
Okay.
It's for the,
Be it resolved, the Woodstock Town Board hereby closes the public hearing for local law number 2 of 2021, a local law imposing a 9-month moratorium on the processing and approval of demolition permits for residential structures and applications for transient accommodation uses, short-term rentals, and residential conversions.
Second for discussion.
Oh, there's more, we're at, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
that's it, sorry. All right, gotcha.
You're going to talk about the misinformation.
This is just to close the public hearing, and then I'll address that. That's okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So Richard brings up a good point, you know, and I think we all got really frustrated over the weekends when we started to get emails from folks with Airbnbs because they had received an email from Airbnb. And I like to think back in 2017, 18, when we started the regulation process, that we had a pretty good relationship with Airbnb, that they were open and they worked with us, and you know, they sent us model laws from other communities, and I think, you know, they did help us come up with a law that was workable, although we're in the process of tweaking it. So for them to blindside us by sending out an email to owners of B&Bs that we were doing away with them or stopping them and infuriating people was just totally uncalled for. You know, I got a half-assed apology from them yesterday, but no offer to retract or send out another email. This moratorium, if you have a short-term rental right now, you're allowed to continue to have one, just like you're allowed to continue to have a motel or a hotel. We're not stopping what's existing. We may make adjustments to our local laws, and in fact, we are in the process of Richard and his committee of reviewing our short-term rental law to amend that to improve some deficiencies that we're aware of.
You have to work both ways.
Yeah, it can work both ways. But I think it was uncalled for, and it was unfortunate that Airbnb sent out that email. It was not being a good corporate sponsor, and they have access. I mean, the way we got contact with Airbnb years ago is that one night in frustration I said we should just ban them all. And the next day I got a call, well actually no, it was 3 days later. I got a call from an attorney for Airbnb from Oregon. Andrew, what was his name?
Okay. What's that in the email?
Call it. And, you know, so they're paying attention to things. They could have paid better attention to this. There was no need to get people twisted. Marta Zabo, I bring up her name because she said I could, was actually one of those folks who emailed me, and I think I forwarded it to you guys, and she was pretty upset about all this. So I called and I said, no, Marta, or she called me actually this afternoon, and I said, no, we're not. If you have an Airbnb, you're okay. Even if you're in the process, there are a couple of Airbnbs that are still in the process of getting permitted, you're okay for now. The moratorium's not going to affect you. She says, oh, well then I totally support it. And she said I could, you know, mention that specifically. She didn't see a problem with putting a halt with where we're at. So,
Well, the halt has nothing to do with their short-term rentals. We're at the cap.
we're at the cap, correct. And Airbnb, thank you. And Airbnb, they're aware of that. Did you want to add anything else, Richard? Whereas the proposed local law entitled Local Law Imposing a 9-Month Moratorium on the Processing and Approval of Demolition Permits for Residential Structures and Applications of Transient Accommodation Uses, Short-Term Rentals, and Residential Conversions in the town of Woodstock was introduced in a meeting of the Woodstock Town Board held on May 10th, 2021. Whereas the local law would implement a temporary 9-month moratorium in the processing and approval of applications for building permits, special use permits, special permits, variances, site plan approval, registrations, lot line revision, subdivision approval, or other approvals or permission related to the undertaking, establishment, placement, development, excavation, enlargement, construction, or erection of the following in the town. 1, bed and breakfast. 2, hotels. 3, motels. 4, short-term rentals. 5, all other forms of transient accommodations, lodging. And 6, the conversion of residential structure and or use of non-residential structure or use. The local law would also place a moratorium on the issuance of demolition permits for the existing residents that are not deemed a hazard where there is no demonstrated intent to construct or reconstruct the residence on the subject property. And whereas the town board duly forwarded the proposed local law to the town of Woodstock Planning Board, the town planning board, and town of Woodstock Housing Committee for their review and comment. And whereas the proposed local law was referred to the Ulster County Planning Board, County Planning Board for review, and by letter dated July 7, 2021, the County Planning Board responded with the recommendation that the length of the proposed moratorium be reduced from 9 months to 6 months with provision for 2 possible 3-month extensions. And whereas the town board duly noted and held a public hearing on the proposed local law on June 8, 2021, at which time it heard from interested members of the public. The town board continued to receive comments on the proposed law until the public hearing was closed on July 20, 2021. Whereas the town board has considered all comments received from interested members of the public, including the town of Woodstock Housing Committee, the County Planning Board, Town Planning Board. Whereas the town board hereby finds and determines that it needs a 9-month period of time covered by this moratorium to carefully review and complete this review and to prepare and to adopt any needed amendments to the town's land use laws and regulations, which will necessarily involve scheduling and holding the required public hearings, performing the appropriate environmental review, compliance with the provisions of law, and filing with the state, the Secretary of State, the state of New York. Whereas the town board has determined that the proposed local laws in compliance with the objectives of the town's comprehensive plan and its adoption would be in the best interests, the health, safety, and welfare of the town. Whereas the town board finds pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.5C30, the adoption of the moratorium on land development and construction as type 2 action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, which has been determined not to have a significant impact on the environment, was otherwise precluded from environmental review on the Environmental Conservation Law, Article 8, and is therefore not subject to review under 6 NYCRR Part 617 or Environmental Conservation Law, Article 8. Now therefore be it resolved as follows by the Town Board of Woodstock, Ulster County, New York. The Town Board of the Town of Woodstock hereby determines the proposed local law number 2 of 2021 attached here to and made a part hereof is hereby adopted. Is further resolved, the town clerk and attorney for the town are hereby directed to take such actions as are necessary to implement this resolution.
I would second it, but I think Richard should do his own.
Somebody second it. Anybody want to make any comments?
Yay.
Thank you.
Nobody?
I can move forward.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Can I just say, I want to, thank folks like Deborah and Jeff and Urena and Elizabeth and Jessica.
Why don't you fill us in a little
I
on it?
just want to say, the preparation for the work that has to be done over the next 9 months, the oversight committee has begun hard.
Yes.
And it's just to get the house organized and everything like that. So we had a 2-hour meeting this morning. I will tell you, in that 2-hour meeting, for those worried about short-term rentals, and short-term rentals was mentioned once, maybe, but it is not the focus of this board. It's a separate thing. And anything we do with short-term rentals will obviously get folded in at some point, but obviously open to the public for comments and things like, the usual. We be as only transparent as we can. I think some of these things work both ways, and I think we're going to get some more clarity. The STR bill was done before the boom, before the pandemic, being the first, come back and try to fix, catch up what we can. But the moratorium, I think, is going to just be a nice pause, time out, breather. A lot of work to do, and Deborah's the chair of the committee. Along with Kirk, and I got to tell you, the consultant, Nan
Stolzenberg.
seems excellent.
Yeah, very impressed.
So, I don't know if Deb wants to talk about where we're heading, but.
I would just add too that, I'm not a big fan of moratoriums. No, sorry. Yeah, okay. I didn't want to speak for everybody, but, we did see that there was an issue here. But I think it really points to how serious we are about resolving this, that the committee, the task force is now already in its third week, had its second meeting. Progress is being made, so, we are taking this seriously. And I remind folks that, this isn't an effort here to kill development. It's an effort to help the town direct developers to the type of developing we need. We have a housing crisis. We have an issue. The county does, the country does. And, I think we're breaking ground here. We were the first with the short-term rental. I think we're ahead of the curve with the rest of the county with regard to the housing issue. So, did you want to say a couple words about it? And thank you for taking it on.
I guess I just want to say I'm very grateful to the town for creating the opportunity to have this really very serious and thorough look in a very targeted way to address, to take all the good work that's been done in the past, from the zoning law, the original zoning law to the comprehensive plan, and folding it into 2021 and beyond, so that we can really create the opportunities in this community, not just for housing, but for people to really live and thrive here in a way that really reflects the community, the kind of community we are. And that was what I heard today in our second meeting from everybody who participated. I think it's a really good group, and we're very fortunate to have Nan Stolzenberg as our consultant, and she's very thoughtful, and she's been really helpful. We're going to do a good job for the town. We're going to do our best, and we'll be sending you reports and giving you updates on our progress and getting.
And if I could share my thanks also for Deborah and everybody on the committee. I mean, Jeff is part of it, Richard and I, and those that are not here, because I agree, it's a very energized committee. People are focused, there's momentum. Nan is doing a great job of leading the way. So I think it's great, and I'm delighted to be part of it, and thank you, Deborah, and for leading everybody who's part of it.
Appreciate you and me.
I'll also just throw out too to the Woodstock Land Conservancy, because this conversation didn't start yesterday. Deb, you and I mean, we've spent a lot of time on the phone and in meetings and whatnot, and the Conservancy has been a good partner in these discussions. And back when the comprehensive plan first came out, actually, one of the things I said, oh shoot, actually that's probably not what I said, but let's leave it at that for now. It talked about housing needs and land preservation. I get that you can have two, but it's not an easy concept. When you say that, they almost sound like they're conflicting. And people really have to think about it more and more. But they don't have to be in conflict. You can do both. And I know Max and Kevin from the Land Conservancy, we've had really good conversations, and they get that there has to be, not every blade has to be saved, but every blade should be sacrificed to get the best benefit for what we need to achieve.
Wow.
Blades of
Did you get
grass
that?
or knife blades? What are we talking about?
Blade of grass.
Blades of grass.
Yes.
Can I get that?
I mean, but
And you can cook him.
What, do we have that on tape?
No, we have it on video.
It's already on video.
You can keep replaying that over
Oh,
and over.
yeah.
Every time the phone rings, it'll just.
I have never seen Jackie say wow like that before.
Where's this going?
There's your
I'm gonna end the meeting right now. Sorry. Sorry, Jeff.
So I just want to thank the board for creating the task force. There's a lot of work to be done. It's very clear from today's meeting. We spent 2 hours and just touched the surface of what we need to cover. We definitely need the 9 months. Definitely is going to take a while to get this done. And it's a lot of work, and there's a lot to change. So I appreciate the time to have it, to do that. So thank you so much.
I just wanted to add to what you just said, that the need, it's also like, we're all volunteers. We're not getting paid or what? Yeah, I mean, we're not tell me that.
She thinks she's getting paid.
So it's, it kind of, sometimes everything can't happen right when it needs to, like a job. And I think sometimes town people, and I've been there too, kind of think, oh, why isn't this done? Why is it? Because we have lives too, and we're doing this on top of it, and we're trying to do it with a lot of seriousness, and extra time, so.
You know, and listen, I do get
Lots
paid
of time,
to do this, but, you know, I have a similar frustration in that, you know, I can't spend 8 hours a day just dealing on the housing crisis. You know, we've got summer camp, we've got building permits, we've got highway roads paved and whatnot, so it's constantly back and forth, so I get it, and it does make it difficult to get things done sometimes. So,
I just want to say one more thing. I've worked with some of the people on the committee before and not others, and I just really appreciate everybody and the perspective that they bring on the task force. And I'm very optimistic that we're going to get this done in a way that the town will feel that we
I am too.
Yeah, and a lot of great ideas came out already today.
already.
A lot of great
Right,
ideas,
we're
so.
still kind of still kicking off our efforts and we're already making progress.
Yeah, but I also want to thank the housing committee. I know you thank the zoning revision committee and the comp plan committee, but the housing committee has done some great legwork through the past time period of really preparing us for this moment as well. So thank you to the housing committee. Great.
My last thank you of the night to the town clerks and to Pam Boyle. You guys did a fantastic job at summer camp. It's going really well. Got all our permits and we're up and running and the kids are having a good time. And it's been a rainy year. We haven't closed but once, I think.
Thank you for your support, Bill. Yeah, we needed it, so it's good. Everybody gets pat on the back.
There's nobody.
There's one there.
Didn't you scratch it off?
No.
Oh, Marcia, come on up. Well, you can do this. Put the camera right on her.
I'm Marcia's Willing, and a lot of you got my email, but I wanted to be here tonight to thank you for this moratorium because it has just become out of control. Now, in the field I work in, a lot of people don't agree with me, but I think it is so important to provide housing for the people that live here, want to live here, work here. You know, this weekend I was at the Sorbies shelter resale store, and the woman working there said, I have to move because someone from the city bought our house for an Airbnb, you know, and you hear that over and over again. And I worked with some first-time buyers during the height of the pandemic. One was an older couple in their 60s. They saved their whole life to buy their first house. And all the houses that were in their price range were bought up for Airbnbs. And I've seen companies from Brooklyn come in and buy them. On my street, I live on Spear Road, California came in and bought 2 houses. And it's criminal in a way, you know. I mean, I grew up around here. I remember the sense of community. And if we don't put an end to the growth of these Airbnbs, there's going to be no neighborhoods left. And that's what makes Woodstock, is knowing our neighbors and the sense of community. And, you know, if neighborhoods start changing into, you know, short-term rentals, there goes the community. So I applaud you for passing this. And if you need another pair of hands or set of eyes, I would love to be involved moving forward. Because I think it's a problem, and I think it's a problem that can be solved, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we got an email, you sent out an email about possible block party.
Yeah.
I was just glad to see it because the neighbors are getting together to throw a party. Wow, we still got a street of neighbors. I would encourage.
So since you brought that up, let's talk about it for a second.
Well, if there was someone, you know.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know, about 2 days, but one day might be enough. I also thought you got to start at Sled Hill and go to Evans Street. You need a.
So from Pine Grove and Sled around, we'll shut it off at Deming and then.
You can still get, if you come in by CVS, you can still get around right up to Cannon Brook.
Right. And one day, we're all good with that?
Yeah, one day.
One day?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know what all those houses in between, I don't know if they're all in agreement or, I don't know
Well,
solve that problem,
we-
somebody wants to get out.
We have to have a public hearing.
Well, so is the idea, and in fact, that was another email that, I need to get the ticket information, open a ticket, because I got Richard's forwarding of yours.
Mhm.
I know that you included.
I saw that,
Because I
yeah.
could see it, but I didn't see the attachment to yours because a reply didn't happen. So I didn't get to look at it because the attachment didn't come to me, so we gotta fix that
Okay.
issue. So I didn't get a chance to read it yet. So can you share more about this, the block party? It'll be Sled Hill Road and then that piece of Deming goes from Sled Hill to Pine Grove?
Well, they were actually asking for Pine Grove, but Richard brought up in his response that Sled Hill and Deming would make more sense, and I agree.
This is
No,
around.
There's a block party on Pine Grove.
You shut off Pine Grove?
Yeah, but you still
Oh,
get
Or
I
maybe
see.
take Sled Hill and
Okay.
Deming then to get through.
Okay, I was thinking the other way, but yeah, that's fine.
Well,
But it
there's
says-
the neighbors on Pine Grove, they said they want to stay.
So the neighbors are the ones, the Pine Road neighbors are the ones that asked for the block party?
That's how I.
And so we would need to, resolution, because we'd be closing the piece of the
We need
road.
a public hearing.
Because we're closing the piece of the road.
Yeah,
And what's their target timeframe for those?
September, so I would need to have a public hearing.
End of July,
So it would be,
and then vote on it
Will the
at the
attendees
beginning
be,
of August. So
Will the
it gives people time to do whatever they want to do for the block party.
will the attendees be just the Pine Grove residents, or is for anybody in Woodstock who wants to come to the event?
I think it's for anybody. So you know what, I may have to call a special meeting next week just to authorize the town clerk to advertise for a public hearing for the first meeting in August. This is our second meeting in July.
Yes,
So, okay, so the press is notified next week. I'll give you guys a quick call, but it'll be a quick, after probably midday meeting, just to schedule the public hearing. Okay?
September 11th,
11th and 12th,
or
or,
18th and 19th.
right, so they wanted 2 days.
Yeah, I want to do
That's,
that.
that,
I'd like to host the first annual Pine Grove Block Party, a festival featuring yard sales, art salons, novelties, entertainment, low decibel for the whole thing. Okay.
I won't be going.
I'm not invited.
You know.
you might be invited. Yes. Does anybody have anything else I can order? Maria-Elena? Move to adjourn?
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Yeah, you covered a lot. Big, big, big,
Thank you, everybody.
I know.